Hurricane Katrina was a devastating natural disaster that ravaged the South in 2005. The storm was very unexpected and forever changed the life in New Orleans as well as the other affected areas. Katrina started as a tropical storm moving over Florida. It then intensified into a moderate Category 1 hurricane, but then weakened after passing Florida and lessened to a tropical storm. The storm stalled beneath a very large upper-level anticyclone that dominated the entire Gulf of Mexico, and it rapidly gained strength. It re-intensified into a hurricane on August 26th and became a Category 5 storm on August 28th. The storm then turned north towards the Louisiana coast. It weakened back to a Category 3 storm before landing along the Louisiana-Mississippi border on the morning of August 29th with sustained winds of 120 miles per hour. The day before Katrina hit, New Orleans Mayor Ray Nagin issued the city's first ever mandatory evacuation order. A few people had left initially because of short notice of the storm and lack of proper help from the government. The National Guard was called in to help with evacuations on August 28th. It was said to be one of the largest displacements of a population since the Great Depression. As it moved inland over southern and central Mississippi, it weakened back to a Category 1 hurricane and then downgraded again to a tropical storm about 6 hours later just northwest of Meridian, Mississippi, and became an extratropical low on August 31st. Later that day, it was absorbed by a frontal zone over the eastern Great Lakes. During the storm, New Orleans was most definitely hit the worst. As it is originally 6 feet below sea level, flooding was inevitable. After the levees gave way due to the harsh wind and waves, 80% of New Orleans ended up underwater.
After the event, the population dropped dramatically from 1.368 million in 2005 to 1.04 million in 2006. Even today, it has only regrown back up to 1.252 million. Although a lot of areas, like the French Quarter, have recovered, some areas are simply gone. The aftermath of Katrina was devastating, with the death toll of 1,836 people and over $100 billion in damage. This hurricane was a storm to make the history books. The Coast Guard had rescued some 34,000 people in New Orleans alone, and many ordinary citizens commandeered boats, offered food and shelter, and did whatever they could to help others. As a result of this traumatic event, many improvements have been added to try and avoid a catastrophe like this. The Army Corps of Engineers have rebuilt the levee system, making barriers higher and supporting them with steel beams that extend as far as 65 feet below sea level. The Post-Katrina Emergency Management Reform Act offers much-needed help in future situations like this. Although the region is still recovering from Katrina, New Orleans has improved government access to evacuation alerts and information greatly. The nation has also benefited from the event as we are more prepared for hurricanes such as Sandy when it hit a few years back. Yet, people still have mixed feelings about how the event really went down. People still ask who was really to blame, was the government slow to react, who should have helped more, and was there any way to avoid the devastation? Going into the project, we had no idea of the extent of how bad everything was. 10 years later, there are certainly people to blame for leaving the affected areas in the state of disaster. Although most of the tourist areas have been rebuilt, it is sad to learn of how people are living in the rubble left by Katrina. To date, Hurricane Katrina was one of the most expensive and deadliest hurricanes in the history of the United States, and it will never be forgotten.